Pleased to meet you. Won't you guess my name? I fucking love that song. Woo-hoo.
Great.
Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo. It gives that little, like, shoulder. Like Debbie at church, you know, she hits that little shoulder thing. She can't move her knees too much because she just had a double knee replacement, but shoulders are still good.
Debbie at church.
By the way, welcome to Cinema Spoilers. My name is Zip. I am Zoe Bell-Kanapaux. I'm a 22-year-old author and audiobook narrator, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
I'm Cameron, and I like watching movies.
So if you watched the other episode uploaded earlier today, you would have known that we're doing our movie marathon. Well, if you've been watching it all in the last week, you would have known that we're doing our movie marathon. But we're doing a series marathon, Final Destination.
Wah, wah, wah.
And we are on Final Destination 2. Twice the trouble, twice the
Budget.
budget. It did look like it had a larger budget. This one came out in 2003. It does have a higher score on Rotten Tomatoes than the first one. It has a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb, 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has one of the recurring cast members. Well, two. Because Ali Larder is there playing Clear Rivers, and Tony Todd is there as the mortician. So, 2 recurring characters.
Yup.
Yeah. And it has a different director. James Wan directed the first one. I don't know why the directors changed, but David R. Ellis directed this one. I did look up why Devon Sawa wasn't in the second one, and it was just a quote like, "It didn't work out." So I don't quite know what that means, because it said,
Especially in early 2000s, it could literally mean anything. Like, they were beefing, or, like, there was just a scheduling issue.
yeah, but there's no movies coming out in that time for Devon Sawa. He took a break.
That's fair enough, too, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes people gotta take breaks.
And I didn't know he was in Hocus Pocus.
I
The
did
first
not
Hocus
know that.
Pocus. Yeah, so it's always a haircut. It's always a haircut that changes it for people.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It goes back to, like, the menu. And how Voldemort doesn't look like Voldemort if he has hair and a nose and regular peachy skin.
Yes, and that episode will be coming out quite soon after we finish the Final Destination episodes.
Us just keep dropping hints about them.
Yes. So anyway, it's gonna be 2 Final Destination today, 1 tomorrow, 1 the next day, and that puts us at 4, and then 1 the next day, and then the menu. I've got quite a bit of stuff to do on that video. Anyway, though, let's get into it. Kimberly, A.J. Cook, has a premonition of a horrible highway accident killing multiple people, including her and her friends. She blocks the cars behind her on the ramp from joining traffic, and as a police trooper, Michael Landis, arrives, the accident actually happens. Now, Death, capital D, is stalking the group of mistaken survivors, and one by one they are dying as they were supposed to be on the highway. Now, that's not entirely true. They're not dying how they were supposed to die on the highway, because it's going backwards, and they figured that out. So, like I said in the synopsis, Kimberly starts, the movie opens on Kimberly going to Daytona Beach with her friends. She's driving from New York to Daytona Beach, Florida, with 3 friends, so 4 in total, in her Suburban. And she's loading up her car with her dad, and her friend is fucking gross.
Yeah.
He's telling her, like, oh, don't forget your AAA card. You know, dad stuff. He's like, don't forget an emergency flashlight. Don't forget to buckle your seatbelt. Don't forget to water the plants. You know, all this kind of stuff. And she's like, and don't forget the handcuffs and whips and condoms.
Yeah. And then right after that, her and her dad are talking still, and the friend gets into the front seat and's like, hurry up, I'm getting horny, let's go pick up the boys.
Fucking gross.
Ugh. As soon as, spoiler alert, as soon as they all died, right after her premonition, I was glad. Glad the first time I watched it, and glad every single time afterwards, because her friends were trash.
Yeah, so this day that they're planning to go to Daytona Beach is the 1-year anniversary of the Flight 180 crash. So, you know, the movie opens in on her watching some sort of conspiracy theorist talking about it, but she's actually asleep. And there's a spider crawling all over her. One of those big tarantula-like spiders. It's not a tarantula, though. You know, I am a spider expert. But, yeah, it opens up on that, and then it immediately shifts to the dad talking with the daughter and everything. So, it's 1 year after the events. She does know that it's 1 year after the events because she watched that conspiracy theorist argue with the TV host about it. And really, he just says what we as an audience learned in the movie prior. It's not anything that the townspeople would know immediately unless they were involved in this. It's what we as an audience watching the movie were able to conclude from the last Final Destination 1. So, you know, she's very aware of that. And as she drives off, she doesn't turn on a single turn signal. She makes multiple turns. And she doesn't put on her seatbelt like her dad told her to. I know a few people that don't wear their seatbelts. And if you're listening, it bothers me a lot that you don't wear your seatbelt. Also, isn't the fucking beeping in your car annoying enough for you to put your seatbelt on? You're a person that kind of gets annoyed. And I imagine that noise annoys you quite a bit. So put on your damn seatbelt, Travis. Cameron didn't expect me to name drop. What the heck? He threw up his hands like, what the hell? This is the reason why you put on your fucking seatbelt, though. This whole movie is the reason why you put on your damn seatbelt. Anyway, she's driving along, and her dipshit friends. It's one girl and two boys, and the boys are in the back seat, and the girl is in the front seat. And she gets a call from her dad that her car's leaking transmission fluid. And so he tells her, he's like, go check that out as soon as possible. And I don't know if that's something I'd be like, go check that out as soon as possible. I'd be like, hey, pull over.
And be like, hey, come back to the house.
Yeah, you're not that far.
Yeah, she already had went and picked up the boys.
Yes.
So why didn't he just call her right away? Because he immediately noticed the
Yes.
transmission fluid as soon as she got out of the driveway.
Yes. And the call is minimum 20 to 30 minutes later. And he has a cell phone.
Yeah.
It's also, by the way, I know we mentioned this earlier, 2003 is when the movie comes out.
So she answers the phone
Yeah.
on the on the highway.
But there's cell phones. There's cellular phones that you can take around and you can make calls. He's also at his house, so I don't imagine that he wouldn't have a house phone. So anyway, they're on the road and, you know, they start like fucking around with other cars and stuff, and they're just general nuisances. And it's revealed that one of the boys in the back seat has copious amounts of pot. And that's given away because there's a state trooper following them. Just like on the road, he's just driving. It's not like he's inherently following them. But in this sequence, each major player of the movie is revealed. You know, you see the guy who is driving his motorcycle and lane splitting, and that's the guy who's, like, really skeptical of everything. I didn't realize at first that that was him, because you don't see him because he's wearing a helmet. So you don't see, and he's wearing full biker garb, like all of his skin is covered, he's wearing a helmet, and it's not like at any point he takes the helmet off and you're like, you know?
It's that guy.
Yeah, so anyway, you see each person, you see a mother and a son, a teenage son. You see a pregnant woman in a delivery van. You see, of course, the state trooper. You see a guy named Rory who is, off the bat, he looks like a rocker guy, you know. He looks like he's not to be trusted around credit cards or cash that you may have laying around. And he also has a little like vial of cocaine. So he's doing it. And he sees the state trooper, and he's like, not me. I'm not doing any cocaine. But anyway, there's also a guy who is blonde, and he looks like he has dyed hair. But he just won the lottery. That's not quite evident until the next scene. But anyway, Kimberly sees this whole thing go down with this log truck throwing out logs and, you know, all of these awful things happening, each car crashing, and there was a bus full of students right before she sees this premonition that's yelling, pile up, pile up, pile up. Awful. I would have thrown a milkshake at them. Gary said, you're not doing that to me. Anyway, she starts to see the premonition coming true. She turns on the radio. She hears something about Gary.
That was the car motor.
Yeah, that was the car motor. She turns on the car radio and she hears... So, on the radio, she hears that there's going to be a memorial candle lighting ceremony for the victims of the 180 crash. And then she hears Highway to Hell. And she's freaking her friends out a little bit because, of course, they don't take anything seriously. And so, as the light to the on-ramp turns green, she decides that she's going to block it. She's not going to allow anyone to get through. And so, I think 7 people who were supposed to die in the crash end up being saved. And she gets out of her car because the police officer tells her, hey, you need to step out of the car. Because he sees all this happening and he's like, obviously drunk driver or something. Something's wrong. So he asks her to step out of the car, and then he saves her. He tackles her down to the floor. One of the 800 times in the movie, he tackles her down to the floor.
For real?
This is the bike riding. Him tackling her to the floor is Billy riding a bike in Final Destination 1.
They had a stunt performer, and they were like, fuck it, we're gonna use them.
Yeah, they were like,
We paid him for the day, just keep tackling her.
Union? She had to get her union hours in for the movie.
Dude, yes.
So, anyway, he tackles her to the floor, and her car, the red Suburban, is absolutely obliterated by a truck. Absolutely obliterated. And all of her friends die. And that's when Cameron's really thankful. He goes, oh my god, this is amazing. I love this movie. 5 stars. I'm putting my Rotten Tomatoes away for another day. You were going to throw them at the screen.
Yes. I was going to boo it as well.
Boo, tomato, tomato, tomato. That's you. Anyway, the police end up going to the scene because this does cause a lot of cars on the freeway itself to crash. But it doesn't cause anyone on the on-ramp to die besides Kimberly's friends. So anyway, they all get questioned by the police, and one of the police officers, who is not ever seen again in the film, ends up letting it go that this guy's really lucky, the guy that won the lottery. And so, because the police officer that was there was like, this is weird, right? This is really weird. And the other police officer goes, no, this guy's lucky. He just won the lottery, and he survived this. hell, he better go buy another lottery ticket. You know. So everybody gets interviewed, and she tells everybody in the room that she had this premonition and that she saw the log truck hitting all of the logs falling from the log truck, and that all of them died. So the only person that didn't show up is Maria, the woman who was in the delivery truck. So they all kind of write her off. They're like, this is fucking stupid. Even though they do bring up the Flight 180 stuff. They're just like, you're stupid. So then we see the guy who won the lottery. And he's got an iMac. He's got, I don't know, like thousands of dollars worth of
He's
shit.
carrying in a bunch of just random early 2000s high-end merch.
Yeah, he's got a watch.
Yeah, he bought a like Swarovski crystal watch. It was girly as hell looking. It was. It was gold, and then it had crystals all around it. Like, what?
They were not diamonds.
No. And they were on the band. The watch band itself. And then he had the horseshoe ring.
I don't remember the horseshoe ring.
That's why he sticks his hand into the garbage disposal.
Oh, okay. I
Because
didn't know you were talking about on the watch. Oh, he has a horseshoe?
Yeah, it was a ring
Okay.
with a horseshoe on it.
And I bet you it went on the unlucky side as it fell down. I didn't watch that closely to the ring. I didn't even see the ring.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
He pulled it out after the watch.
So he's walking into his walk-up apartment, and there's children's toys galore. So he's all pissed off because why are all of these toys in the hallway of the apartment complex? Which, frankly, I would be upset too. Like, put your toys up. That's always been, like, as a child, I had to put my toys in my toy chest. Or, you know, toy chest being trash bag, you know, most of the time. Or, like, the bottom drawer of your chest of drawers or your dresser. Sorry. My mom always bought, like, weird second-hand vintage. This was before vintage was cool. Furniture. And it would be, like, $20 on Craigslist, but solid wood and shit. And somebody was just like, I'm tired of oiling it. She would get it, and it'd be the ugliest fucking thing. Anyway, he trips over a bunch of the children's toys, and he's, like, cussing, and he finally gets into his apartment, and he decides he's going to reheat his nasty fucking leftovers that have been in his refrigerator for days at this point. And he uses the grossest pan you've ever fucking seen, and
That had overnight spaghetti in it.
yeah.
Tosses out the window.
Nasty. So then he goes to his answering machine and he starts listening to all of the voicemails that are left for him. And really it's just a bunch of people who are like, hey buddy, haven't talked to you in a while. Heard you won the lottery. Let's hook up. You know, stuff like that. And so he's all pissed off and he starts making his food, and then for whatever reason he goes to the sink and he drops his ring down and he sticks his hand with the watch into the garbage disposal, and he cannot get it out because it's too thick. So, you know, he's trying to get it out, and he ends up starting a fire because his food's just that fucking gross and his kitchen's disgusting, and the fire starts and he's trying to get it down, so he throws a towel at it. And then
he's fanning the flame with this towel, so it's just growing.
Yeah, so the fire grows, and he's panicking, rightfully so, because he's stuck in the garbage disposal. So he finally breaks free, though, and he gets onto his fire escape, and he's like, whew, how lucky am I? Oh, by the way, tell him about the magnet on his fridge.
Oh, yeah. So, when he takes out his nasty-ass Chinese food, there's...
It's leftovers of leftover Chinese food.
Yeah. He sniffs it and, like,
Ugh.
cringes at it,
Yeah.
and then still is gonna eat it. after he wins the lottery, like, yo, go get some fresh Chinese food.
Order it to your apartment.
Yo, but there's some alphabet magnets on the fridge, and an M falls in, and it just says I on the
EYE.
Yeah, EYE on the fridge. And then that's what he sticks into the toaster oven to start the fire, because the magnet catches the to-go paper on fire.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, and then it like trailed over because he squirted all that oil into the pan.
Oh.
And he has a gas stove, so the gas just lit that on fire as well.
Yikes, dude.
So
it
was like 3 different sources of fire.
Yeah, so I like to call that lottery guy's fake out, because he is able to make it. And he gets onto the fire escape, and he stands there for a moment before he finally decides to start going down the ladder. But the ladder is old, and it's orange. Like, that's how rusty it is. It's orange. And so he tries to shimmy it down. And he does. He gets it most of the way down, and then he ends up jumping the rest of the way. And because he threw his disgusting-ass spaghetti out the window, he ends up slipping on it. And he slips and he falls into the glass that's on the floor. And he falls in such a perfect position that one of the legs of the ladder goes and almost hits him in the eye. And that's another lottery guy fake out. And then he's like, "Woo, that was close," instead of fucking moving. "Whoa, that was close." And then it gets him in the eye.
And then it does.
Bum, bum, bum. Gary had something to say about it. Anyway. After that, Kimberly goes to meet Clear Waters, who has checked herself into a residential mental health facility. And from there, she kind of learns about the whole, death curse sort of thing. And she tells Clear that she has a responsibility to save these people. And Clear's like, "Dude, all my friends died and my boyfriend. Fuck off." Literally. And so Kimberly goes back home, and she just is watching the TV behind her father, and she sees that lottery guy has died of a weird freak accident. And so the police officer shows up at her house, and they begin talking, and she tells him all of the sort of stuff that she learned from Clear, and they decide that they need to confront the next person that's going to die if they're going on. They discover it's backwards, and then they discover that they need to go tell the mother and son that they're going to be next. So as they make this discovery and as they decide this decision, they see a bunch of pigeons flying overhead, and she gets that feeling.
Dun dun dun.
Anyway, she gets this feeling, and she's like, "Oh my god, tell them they're gonna die from pigeons." Which ends up being true, but what, you're gonna get the Black Plague?
Right.
It's...
I got the bird flu. Yeah,
they ate bad squab, and they got salmonella. I was gonna say trichinosis.
Whatever.
That's pork.
Whatever, they got something.
Yeah,
they got crushed by glass.
So, the mother and son are actually at a dentist appointment, and this dentist's office is 360 glass, and he makes a joke. The little kid, who's 14, makes a joke, and he's like, "If I go in there and they give me funny gas, and I wake up and my pants are off, we're not paying." In front of the
anesthesiologist and the doctor.
Yes! And so he goes back there to get his teeth checked, just a regular checkup, and pigeons keep flying into the glass.
It broke the glass.
Yes. They broke the glass, and of course, the dentist is like, "God damn it!" Every time.
Every time, and then also he's like jerking back with all the tools that he has in his hands.
Yes, he has to give the kid a filling, and he has the drill, and he's drilling into this kid's tooth, and he fucking jerks back. It happens also, firstly, it happens when he has the numbing needle in his hand, and he's ready to numb him up, and then he jerks up because this bird hits the glass, and then he's like, do you just want laughing gas? So he ends up just setting it to a random, like, nozzle. He's not looking very, like, deeply into this. And he calls for the anesthesiologist, and she doesn't come because there's so much noise. There's construction going on in the background.
And then she's answering their phone call as they're driving over.
Yes, she's answering a different phone call.
No, she's talking to the chick and the officer. Because whenever it cuts back to them, she's like, oh, the receptionist was saying that they're at this location. That's who she's on the phone with.
The housekeeper tells them that. She's on the phone with someone random because she says, yes, your appointment's at 6 p.m.
Oh.
Yeah. So she gets in contact. The Kimberly gets in contact with the housekeeper because she calls their home to see where they are. And the housekeeper tells them that they've left to go to the dentist appointment. But we see on the other end that the anesthesiologist is answering the phone calls, but because there's so much drilling and so much construction in the background, she can't hear. So, also at this point, the fish tank that's in the lobby starts leaking, like aggressively leaking. And so anyway, he's getting a filling, and the dentist asks him, does your mom know you smoke? And the kid goes, yeah, she knows. And, because a dentist can tell. A dentist can tell immediately if you smoke. And so, anyway, the dentist gets up to go get the anesthesiologist, and he ends up leaving the laughing gas on. So the kid can't, move, he can't do anything, and there's the suction tube in his mouth. But part of this mobile that's over him, because it's a child dentist, part of it is a fish, and it falls into his mouth, and so he starts choking on it, and there's nothing he can do. He ends up spitting it out. He ends up being okay. But as they're walking out of the dentist's office, Kimberly and the police officer have made it there. A giant fucking pane of glass just, squashes the kid. Squash. Squelches. Squelching noises.
Squanchy.
Squanch. But, yeah, so the mom's all upset, obviously, and she knows that she's gonna die next. They tell her. And so, everybody ends up meeting at the police officer's apartment, including Clear Rivers, and they try to explain what's going on, but most of the people are skeptics. The only person who's really receptive to this is the guy who does all the drugs. Rory. So, the only person that's, really receptive to it is Rory. But the mother, the other businesswoman, and the other man that's there really just don't give a fuck. They're like, whatever. And then they kind of go with it, except for the other guy that's there. He's like, nah, not happening. I don't believe it. So him and the mother go down, or they take the elevator to get downstairs. And there is a creepy as fuck man in there.
Dude, he was old as fuck, creepy as hell. He was sniffing the mom's hair.
Yes. And
he was holding this box of prosthetic arms. And he didn't even have prosthetics. He had normal hands himself.
He had his own hands. He wasn't somebody that, needed the prosthetic. He just had a bunch of prosthetics in this milk crate. And I forgot to mention that just before this happens, just before the man and the mother step into the elevator, they see Clear Rivers almost get annihilated by this canoe because the man kicks a ball on the floor and it hits this mousetrap, which in turn hits the rope hitch that is connected to it. And the rope lets the canoe down and it goes through the window, but she jumps down just in time. And she was like, I should have seen that coming. How? There wasn't the wind and the music. Yeah, there was nothing in front of that. So, okay, Clear, we get it. You're clairvoyant.
Right.
The word's clairvoyant, but
clear.
So, anyway, they step into it. The guy sniffs her hair. And the drug addict guy, the drug addicted guy, he walks into this closet and he messes around with some stuff and some stuff falls on him. But he sees a shadow of a man who has prosthetics that are hooks for hands. And so they try to call the mom. And she cannot hear what they're saying, really. She cannot hear it at all until the very end. A man with a hook hand's gonna kill you. And so she starts freaking out. And she drops the phone and she goes to pick it up. And her braid gets caught in one of the prostheses. And so everyone's freaking the fuck out. Clear runs downstairs to try to catch her. And the businesswoman is coming in from having a smoke. So she sees. And she's able to get part of the way out of the elevator, but it closes around her neck, and then the floor just keeps going up, so she's decapitated. Boom.
Boom or doom? Doom.
I was about to say, that one's a doom. AJ and Big Justice. I didn't know which was which. I didn't know who was AJ and who was Big Justice.
I just knew one had big eyebrows. Both got big eyebrows.
I love those guys. Did you know they're from Florida? They live in
Really?
Florida. I thought they lived in Jersey.
I thought so too. They
They
look very Italian.
They gave off New Jersey vibes. Like, definitely.
They look like they're part of the family of Buddy.
Buddy Vlastro?
Yeah, Buddy the cake guy.
They could have
Cake
been going to
boss.
Carlos's Bakery, yeah.
Yeah, they look like they should be wearing some Chef Whites and making some cakes in the back.
Making some cakes out of Rice Krispies and
making
fondant.
some boom cakes, With, like, double chocolate chunk cookies.
You want to know something really funny?
Huh.
So, my mom is Hispanic. She's from Honduras. And she married a man who's Italian. So, for the longest time, I just thought we were Italian. I'm not Italian at all.
You said my motto for a really long time was Vini Vidi Vici.
I make it a pasta. I thought I was Italian because my stepfather is Italian. So, I thought just for the longest time that I was Italian. And his family is one of those where, like, we can trace our ancestors all the way back to Sicily and all of that kind of stuff. They're close to Italy in generational wise, like, pretty close. So, they're very, very strong with their Italian heritage. But I just, growing up for, like, a few years, I thought I was Italian, and then my own presumed father had to tell me, like, you're not Italian.
So, well, now I'm disappointed.
Because I even did, like, school projects about it.
Yo, you were moving around too much, though, so it's alright.
Yeah, no one, well, my, like...
No one will call you out on it. Be like, yo, you're not Italian.
I thought it was Italian.
Man, you made school projects way more fun, because you just did whatever the fuck you wanted to do.
Well, there was, like, stuff. It was, like, family trees and stuff like that, and I was like, I'm Italian. or it would be like some little, like, history stuff. Like, I remember, like, we learned about ancient Egypt and ancient China. And I was like, you know what's from ancient China? Noodles. You know what else has noodles?
My mom!
Italy! No, it was, like, legitimate, like, family, like, projects. So I always would be like, my family's Italian, and I was fucking wrong. Anyway, after the skeptical man sees the mom pass away, he ends up, like, believing it. He goes from one extreme to the other, and he pulls a gun out. Because he goes back to the apartment, obviously. He pulls a gun out, and he starts, like, he's about to shoot the police officer, and he turns the gun on himself, but it jams. And
It's a revolver.
Yes.
It doesn't jam.
Oh.
It just doesn't fire.
It didn't fire.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's a difference.
Mr. Expert over here.
I'm just saying.
So anyway, they look and they see that all 6 bullets are still in the chamber. So they know that it's, like, not his time. So they go and they talk to the mortician from the first film. And he basically tells them, like, new life saves you from this like, loop of death. So they automatically assume that it's Maria, the pregnant woman who was in the delivery truck. So they're, like, trying to find Maria, and they can't. So the police officer abuses his power and puts out an APB for her.
Definitely abuse of power.
Yes, and he says that the delivery truck was stolen. It was not. And she ends up getting arrested on suspicion of, like, Grand Theft Auto. And while she's in the jail cell, her water breaks. And it's one of those moments where typically, obviously there's no typical labor. Labor happens very differently for most people. But it's not the most common where your water breaks and then all of a sudden you're 10 centimeters dilated. Like 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
That's not usually what happens. Typically it takes more than 30 minutes for that to happen.
Yeah.
So, it usually takes a few hours at the least. So she's immediately like, I'm in labor. And the police officer that's there does not know, like, you're okay to, like, take a minute and, like, contact your boss and then,
arrange an ambulance to
Yeah.
come.
Get her some transport. You don't have to go 80 miles per hour in a vehicle you've never driven before on wet roads. Like, she's gonna be okay because she has not had a single contraction. She's just uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
She has not had a single contraction at this point. So everybody ends up piling into a white Suburban, and they end up going to drive to Maria, or they're going to drive to the police station because Maria's there. To their knowledge, Maria's there. But they end up crossing paths, and they end up almost crashing into each other. Instead, they go, like, wild and out. But they had just learned while they were in the car, everybody that's the group learns that they're all kind of related to people from the 180 crash. Kimberly, her mother, was killed in a carjacking, and she would have been killed too had she not been watching the footage of the 180 crash in the mall. Another person, the teacher, who is a superstitious guy, he reveals that he would have been stabbed, but he got moved to a different school to replace the teacher that died after the 180 crash. The other woman, do you remember what her deal was? She was supposed to go to a little cottage that had a gas leak, but she didn't because
of the night that the officer had to go scrape up, to quote him, scrape up Billy off the ground.
The night, what happened?
When he got hit by the train.
Yeah, he got hit by the train, but why did that affect her?
Because she couldn't get past because he was scraping him off the ground.
Oh, there was traffic.
Right.
Yeah, and then
that's
the police
why
officer...
she couldn't go to the cottage, and then it kind of all started to circle back into each other.
Well, the guy that's, like, super into cocaine, he ended up revealing that he was actually there when Carter from the last movie was killed by the sign in the very last, the last few minutes. So, obviously, Clear Rivers was there for the whole thing. So, they all reveal that information. So, they're all a little bit spooked. And the businesswoman drives like crazy, and she ends up driving, in such a way that a log goes over her lap and traps her in the car. And she finally stops the car once, at a PVC sort of.
Yeah, it starts to slide backwards, and
there's like a stack of PVC pipes.
Yeah, it's because they end up on a farm or whatever.
Yeah.
And they have a trench dug that's meant for the PVC pipes.
But they haven't laid them down
They
yet.
haven't laid them down yet, so they're all stuck up, and they slide backwards into them.
Yeah, so the teacher ends up dying. The superstitious guy ends up dying because it goes... Well, no, he doesn't end up dying. He ends up getting impaled in his, midsection, mid-chest, in between his chest and his, stomach area. So he gets impaled, and they call 911, and he ends up going in the ambulance, and a quick succession of things happen. So,
Can we also talk about how the ambulance got to him, and he was able to be incubated and wrapped up before the lady in the van got there?
Yes.
She should have just called a fucking ambulance.
Yes.
Honestly. Because he got there first, and they were already headed back on the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
So, bruh.
Because she's mean as fuck, dude, the whole time.
She was rude.
Because she was like, don't help them, don't stop to help them.
Yeah, she was rude to this deputy that's, just trying to get her to the hospital.
Yes, her water broke, but she hasn't shown that she's had a contraction yet.
She's in labor, but she's not in labor.
She's pre-labor.
Yeah.
Because her water's broke.
I'd say, contractions, you know.
She hasn't had contractions.
I know, that's what I'm saying, that she's not, really in labor.
Yeah, so, anyway,
The event has begun.
Yes, the very quick succession has begun. So, they get the jaws of life out there for the businesswoman, and she decides she's going to smoke. And she has these really expensive cigarettes. Oh my goodness, our cat just fell off the bed. She has these really expensive cigarettes, and she decides she's going to smoke while she waits for these people to get to her. And she still has the PVC pipe stuck in the back of her seat. So, she's waiting for the jaws of life, and she's smoking. And then, there's a news van that pulls in. Immediately, there's a news van. And, it almost hits this kid that lives on the farm. And Coke guy, Rory, he pulls him off and he's like, what, are you trying to die? Unknowingly adding him to the loop, right? Because he would have been hit by that truck. And he probably would have died. So, anyway, Rory is standing with Kimberly, and he says, well, I know I'm next, so can you take this and this? It's his wallet and his keys. And he's like, can you throw away all my drug paraphernalia and my porno? Implying that he made a porno. He's not saying, my pornos that I have at home. He says, my porno.
No. That's early 2000s. My porno is his, magazines and shit.
Okay. Anyway.
2000s, dog.
Yeah, there's VHS tapes.
Yeah, so go get rid of them.
So, anyway, he says anything that'll break my mom's heart. And Kimberly's like, no. like she's not gonna do it. And then she finally just, accepts it. But then, the news truck ends up hitting this fence. That's a barbed wire fence. And it goes through Rory. And at the same time, the jaws of life go to open, the car for the businesswoman so she can get out because she's trapped with the log over her legs. And they set off the airbag. which then impales her head with the PVC pipe. So they both die on the spot. There's no question about that. So Kimberly, Clear, and the police officer drive as fast as they can to the hospital. And on the way, Kimberly has this premonition of Dr. K, because not a single person can say this name the same way. Each person is like Kalargine, Kalargian, like Kalachi. All of them say a different fucking name for this doctor.
For real. There was no consensus.
There was no consensus. So she sees this doctor, and she thinks that the doctor's gonna choke her out.
Yeah.
Or choke out the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
At first she thinks that it's gonna be the teacher, and then she decides it's her. So, finally Maria is giving birth. She's in labor, and she keeps pushing despite the fact that they're like, dude, stop pushing. You're gonna kill your baby. She keeps pushing. She does not give a fuck.
She said, kill it.
Because the baby has its cord wrapped around its neck, so, the baby might die. Anyway, they hear an announcement for Dr. Kalarjan to go up to labor and delivery because, they need her. I guess it's an emergency surgery at that point. So they follow the doctor to try to get up there. And they break into the delivery room.
Yeah.
Maria still doesn't know who the fuck these people are.
Yeah.
And they watch her give birth. And they find out it's a baby boy, and she's fine, and the baby boy's fine, and
they congratulate her, and she's all, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah. And so then, the teacher is in his own little, process of dying. But it reverses as soon as the baby's born. And that still doesn't change the fact that his oxygen got, turned up all the way. And,
the vents are closed in the room.
Yeah, so there's a shit ton of oxygen in there. So Clear's like, we gotta find the teacher. And as she goes to open the door, one of the plugs unplugs and it sparks an explosion. So at that point, Kimberly and the police officer are like, no fucking way it's still going on because the teacher and Clear just died. There is no way they didn't die. And they see Dr. Kalarjan bring a crash cart over to them. So the big part of the premonition is coming true. And as the explosion happens, she sees these cuts on her hands, which are part of the premonition. And then she sees on the board, new life given to drowning victim. So she knows now that it wasn't the baby that they were dependent on because she has another premonition of what would have happened. The woman was getting out of her car anyway. She wasn't going to get hit by any of the trucks. So she would have survived regardless. So she was like a red herring this whole time. So now Kimberly decides that the best move is for her to steal this ambulance and drive into this lake. And she does so. And she ends up almost drowning. And it's just like the last movie how they show, they showed him dying. And then 6 months later, but this is 6 minutes later. They show the struggle of the police officer trying to get her out of the ambulance. They don't show that he does it. But then they show her, getting, the paddles put on her. So that way she can start, breathing and existing and, be
Staying
alive again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, he tells her, we did it. We ended it. And then this cheesy fucking orange light comes through and everything's all bright and happy. And they end up going to this barbecue that was hosted by the farm family. And, they're starting to talk about how weird it was that this kid was almost killed by the news van on the same day that everything happened, but they had never really talked about it as a family. So then they get the sense. They get the feeling. And
Dun.
the kid, Noel Miller, by the way, who plays Mickey in Shameless, and he plays one of the Volturi in Twilight.
Yeah.
So he ends up going to check the grill. And the police officer's like, be careful with those things. And that's how they find out that he was almost hit by the news truck, but Rory saved him. And they get the feeling.
Dun.
And then the can is exploded. Because there's like a giant like gas. What I don't know. He opens the thing in it. There's too much gas and the fire.
Just.
And his arm lands in front of his mom on her plate.
Barbecued.
And the movie ends. If you like movies, you may like my book, Double Feature. I forgot to mention it earlier. I have a book coming out called Double Feature, and if you like this sequence of episodes, the 2 episodes per day, I am never doing 2 episodes per day again, by the way. Just saying. I may film them, but I'm not posting 2 episodes a day. That's wild. That's crazy. What I'm doing now, this movie marathon, is insane. So... Anyway, the movie marathon is to lead up to the release of my book, Double Feature. This is highly anticipated. People are quite mad at me for not getting it out sooner because I left everybody in a not-so-great place in Crash. So Double Feature can be read as a standalone. There's only one recurring character, but you don't have to know anything about them in order to enjoy the book, or to enjoy the story, or to enjoy the character at all. So, let me get the synopsis ready for you guys. So, how excited are you for Double Feature, Kimmin?
I've been waiting personally, and I've also been pushing to, hey, when's your story going to be done? You know, I'm a consumer as well, so...
Yeah, so... A trip to the movies turns feral when 10 individuals are trapped within the auditoriums. An apocalypse caused by corporate greed leaves 6 children, 2 theater workers, a couple, and a mortician scrambling to figure out how to survive off stale popcorn and candy bars. How much of the world is left? What can be done to prolong their lives? Why are things so eerie within the concrete walls of the picture house? Find out in Double Feature. Now, I did find out that I can't do a hardcover because the book is just too long for that. But there will be a paperback, and I love the paperback cover. I love it. And there will be an audiobook as well. And right now you can go on my Ko-fi and see the Double Feature blanket, which is also on my Instagram at Zoe Writes Books. You know, you can find a bunch of pictures there with my wonderful model, Cameron.
Hi, I like modeling as well.
You can find that on my Instagram, so you can get a bunch of different pictures, and a bunch of the details for it are on my Ko-fi as well. And right now you can pre-order a signed copy of Double Feature. So, you know, go over there to that website right now. It's the first link in the description. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for another movie.
Yay! Come back. We love y'all. See y'all.
You're so cute. Bye-bye.